All right, I think I can already begin. My name is Uwe and I'm the founder of the Premium Cola Collective, which is basically a company, so I'm an entrepreneur. And I don't know if I'm a social entrepreneur, but I try to, do my job in a kind of responsible fashion. And by doing so, I very much avoid to do things like in the book of economics. I do nearly everything wrong, and still the company exists, which I personally find pretty astonishing until today. And I travel a lot. I get invited to talk at universities, and there's one University of Berlin. They also have videos we recorded, and the professor there also shows the videos to the students at the beginning of the course. And he asked them, well, over the course of the lectures to follow, then please think about what would Uwe think on that curtain issue, which I think is pretty much an honor for me, but I think that's not enough. What I'm trying to transfer is, what do you actually think while you are visiting this lecture, and what are your thoughts on the theories and on the concepts you will be getting to know? Because I think that you as future employees, or maybe even leaders, actually can make a difference on how you actually do your job and what effects you have on your personal surroundings. And this is the main product. It's also sold here in Mannheim, and you can see it's pretty much minimalistic in design terms, but also in ecological terms. We avoided 2 of the 3 labels, and we have no coloring, and it's also glass returnable bottles as well. And the company delivers in 200 cities in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. Only this region, due to ecological limitations of the planet, actually, we have. And we sold 1.5 million bottles last year, so it's not a too small company, but it's not big as well. And we produce and deliver and sell with a network of 1,700 commercial partners. This is our network. So we are here, responsible for ourselves, basically, in the standard business world. But we are connected to bottling plants, to providers of supplies, to customs agencies, to wholesalers, to dealers, to gastronomies, to you as consumers, to programmers, to every kind of person having to do his or her job in order to produce, deliver, and sell and pay taxes. And last time we checked, we had 1,700 commercial partners. And the company is 15 years old now, so I have managed to work with all these partners without a single written contract. There's no written contract binding anybody to do anything. So everybody is free to leave at any given moment, which in turn means that I have to treat them so well that they want to stay, actually. And also, I have managed to run the company for 15 years without having a single lawsuit. So I think this is proof of concept that it's possible to work with so many commercial partners, which typically are standard businesses without written contracts and still have no major issues like lawsuits. And this is, I think, because I run the company with a certain idea in mind. I feel that humans should be treated as equal as possible. Because, no matter where you come from, gender, color of skin, and so on, should every human being have the same equal rights. And also in the business world, I think it makes no sense to give more power to owners of companies than to the employees. And I think it makes no sense to give more power to people which are employed in relation to external partners. And I think it makes no sense to give more power to big companies than to small companies, because they are all being run by humans, and humans should have equal rights. So that's my main idea I try to implement in the company. And the company started 17 years ago when I was drinking my then favorite cola. I was a consumer, I had nothing to do with the drinks industry. And I noticed that the taste was different, and I wanted to get the caffeine push, which didn't show up, so I noticed they had changed the recipe, but they didn't tell me as consumer, they just changed it secretly. And I was like, they can't do that. If they change my cola, they have to tell me. So I went there and demanded that I, as a consumer, have to co-decide if they want to change something in their company. And we talked for 2 years. I can be a little stubborn person sometimes. And they didn't agree, so I kind of failed. And then I got a hint that it's pretty easy to enter the drinks industry. You just have to find a syrup producer and a bottling plant and find like 2,000 Deutschmarks in that era. And then I ordered like 1,000 bottles of the original recipe of the cola and had 1,000 bottles of cola to give to my friends. And the moment I ordered the bottles, things switched, because before I was like here, treated unequal as a consumer. And then I was about to decide about these 1,000 bottles. Who will produce them, to which conditions, who will deliver them to whom, who will get which share when the bottles are sold, and so on. So I didn't want to be that guy as well. So I invited everybody to come to a local club every Sunday evening. Every commercial partner, like wholesalers or truck drivers, the consumers as well, and invited them to bring their ideas, their needs, their wishes, their thoughts, and then we wanted to talk until everybody agrees, because I didn't want to give orders to them. I wanted to negotiate until we all have an equal level of understanding. And that's basically the main idea until today. Talk to everybody and talk so long until you agree. And then, of course, we had to think about certain levels of decisions we had to take. There are decisions which will just affect you personally, like, for example, when you work or where you work, how long you work, and so on. So these decisions you can take on your own, of course. And there are decisions which have effects on other people, like demanding for production or delivery dates. So I think you have to ask the other persons on their opinion and then find a common solution. And there are decisions which affect the whole company, so I think you should talk with the whole company if you have something to decide. And the key issue is that every member of the company can decide that a certain decision should be taken here, but every other member can move the decision to here or to here. So if you do something which you think just affects you, or you like to decide on your own, and somebody disagrees, then you can just move the decision to the company level. And this applies to basically every decision concerning production, shares, deliveries, or the type of envelope we buy. And when I'm talking about talking until everybody agrees, we call this consensus democracy. It's our decision-making model, which means that we agree on a common goal, which is basically the equality of people. And then it's pretty much open, so everybody can give any topic. There's no filtering. We discuss, typically for 2 to 3 weeks, until somebody makes a suggestion. And if that suggestion receives no veto, then it becomes a decision. And that's basically the main decision-making process, which typically takes 2 to 3 weeks, which is, compared to other companies I've worked in, very quick. Although we invite everybody involved, not only the members of the company, but also the employers and the customers and even you, to co-decide. If you want to take part in our decision-making, it's enough to drink 1 bottle, give your real name, and meet 1 member once. Doesn't have to be me, can be anybody. And then you, of course, you drink the bottles, so you are part of the company, you can co-decide. Pretty strange, right? It gets even stranger. We had 5 incidents where this model came to its borders. The first 2 were people who were stealing from us. So we have to find a solution to fire somebody without his or her veto. And that's basically how it works. Everybody in this collective, we call it, can nominate everybody else to get fired. And if you get nominated, you lose the right to veto your own firing. And then we discuss, and if there's one other person giving a veto, then you can't fire somebody. But if the reasoning after this nomination is so pretty much funded that nobody else gives a veto, then you can be fired. And we had 2 idiots stealing from us, 1 idiot every 7.5 years. I think that's pretty cool. How often do you meet idiots? And we had 2 more incidents where we couldn't come to a consensus. We couldn't agree on the art pictures on the backside of the label, and couldn't produce labels and bottles and couldn't deliver and so on. So I was allowed to give a decision as the founder and owner of the company. And the second time also was about the label. We couldn't agree on the text line on the front label, which is basically a matter of taste, you could call it. So we couldn't agree there, so I was allowed to give a decision. Which again means like 2 times in 15 years, like every 7.5 years, you need a management decision from the owner, and that's it. In the meantime, you don't. And there was a 5th incident when we had a misproduction with a double amount of caffeine, which was pretty cool, I think. But of course, it's illegal if the contents of the bottles don't match what is written on it, so we had to draw them back immediately by the law. So I asked everybody, please, it's the law, immediately, and they did it. So 5 incidents in 15 years, so every 3 years there's an incident. You need a main moderator, is my role, to give a decision, and that's it. With, again, 1,700 commercial partners in 15 years with no written contracts. So this is basically a working decision-making model you could copy and adapt to your needs. And I think it's pretty vital that we don't have written contracts to make this work, because typical companies also negotiate and find agreements with their partners, and then typically they write them down, give them a period of time, like 1 year, sign it, and then it's a contract. And if you have a contract, then the agreement should remain the same within the duration of the contract. That's the reason why you have contracts. But that's also the problem with contracts, because if we, for example, now we agree we are here, have this lecture together, and I make you sign a contract, you have to stay here, and then something happens. The building is on fire, your spouse is in the hospital, you might want to leave. And I could force you with a contract to stay, making you unhappy. So I think it's pretty necessary not to have written contracts, but just agreements which can be renegotiated any given moment in time, because we change, the industry changes, people change, there's change everywhere. So we would be stupid if we have fixed agreements. They need to be changeable in an instant. Strange, right? It gets even stranger. I started in Hamburg, and then after like 1 year, I got calls from other cities, and they wanted to have the drink as well. So I would have to hire a salesperson, pay for a car, for samples, send him there, pay for the hotel, to get customers to make this work. But that would have meant that I would have to, take a credit from somewhere, take a loan, and by doing so, I would have to give typically the bank a business proposal, like for 3 years time span with the steps, and I would have to, run my business to the ideas of the bank or the investors, because they want, of course, their money back, so they demand that I push sales and that I push the employees and that I push, and I don't want to push, so I kind of avoided the actual funding process and waited until I had saved enough money to go to that city myself and build this up myself. And then I did the next city and the next city and the next city. And thereby I had the time to build up the company slowly without having the pressure from some investor. And I had the time to develop myself, to learn about the industry, to learn how to interact with people, how does the system work and so on. And by doing so, city by city, it took me 7.5 years to actually have a share per bottle myself. So the first 7.5 years I worked for no money. I even put money in, like 10,000 euros over the course of time, which is not too much per month, but a significant amount. And then after 7.5 years, I had a share per bottle. And after 8.5 years, I was able to make the switch, quit my job at the university I had at the time, and go full-time with this project. And you could call it stupid, because I could have been quicker with external financing, but then I would have to obey the laws of the external financing, which I didn't want to. So this was, for me, the healthy path to be a little stubborn and build this up slowly. And then the first wholesalers called and demanded that I give them volume discounts, because we had, of course, bundled logistics, so we don't want to have 10 trucks here, but just one big truck and then smaller trucks here. So we have a wholesaler here who buys from the production plant, and he demanded a volume discount because, of course, it's more efficient to load one truck, to care for one customer, to send one invoice than to do it 10 times. And he said, well, it's in the book, look it up, you have to have volume discounts. And I didn't agree, because I looked at the topic and found out that, of course, it's cheaper to have one truck. So the more bottles you transport, the cheaper the transportation gets. And if I add a volume discount for the wholesaler, then he earns twice because he's big. Makes no sense in terms of equality, right? So I argued that we don't have volume discounts, because there is already a hidden one here. But we have anti-volume discounts. The small dealers who have high transportation costs or maybe the beginning ones in a new city here, they need support. They need a cheaper product price to cover up for the higher logistic costs. So we invented the anti-volume discount. Crazy, right? It gets even crazier. We discussed today in an online forum. So we have lots of cities we deliver to, lots of members we want to involve, so we can't meet every Sunday evening. And this is our information area, pretty complex until today. And if we zoom out a little, then this is our discussion area, also pretty big. And you can have a login there. You just write to elena@premium/cola.de. And you can put any topic here. You can also pull any topic from here, which has already been decided upon, and take it down here and rediscuss. And then there's a third area, which is about jobs. We put jobs there, and if you want to do a job, then you can just try it. Typically, we just offer a job, and the first person who wants to try it can try it, even with accounting. Can be pretty dangerous. But I want to provide the humans the freedom to actually make several jobs in their lifetime, to switch jobs when they want to. And if I would demand like university diplomas or bills from the former employers for example, accounting, then I would kind of stick that person to accounting, which I don't want to. I want to enable them to flexibilize their own working career. So if you want to try a job, you can just try. And here are scientific papers. They have been written more than 100 about us. They all found out something different. And there's an archive here, and that's it basically. So that's the main decision-making tool of the company, and it takes about 15 to 30 minutes of my daily job routine, which is pretty efficient, I guess. And we discuss, of course, who will get which share when such a bottle is sold. And in the books, it's about percentage margins, for example, or in the drinks industry, it's 100 liters unit. And I think you have to be able to understand it, so I put this down to the single bottle. And this is pretty much easy. This is the ingredients. This is the bottling plant. These are our shares. Then there's logistics, wholesaler, dealership, and club and bar owner. Has the biggest share because he hands you one bottle while he has to pay for the room and the person and the taxes and so on. And this has been made transparent to everybody involved, which is, I think, a good foundation of trust if you open up this structure. And with nearly every other product you buy, this is a secret. Why is this a secret? If you buy the product, you have to be able to know where your money is going, I think. And it's also pretty much stable. This changes like once a year, so everybody involved knows about his or her share. And this contributes to a low level of people who we lose. We lose less than 2% of our commercial partners over the whole 15 years, which again is pretty efficient because it takes much more energy to find new partners and convince them and build them into a structure and so on than to just keep the partners you have. And there's two shares which are not in here. Don't know if you can read it. The first share is advertising, because advertising typically means that you have like 4 to 8 cents per bottle here, like 1 or 2 euros per crate if you buy it, which we would collect and then pay advertising to get on your nerves. Because advertising in most cases is unwanted communication. You go to the street, there's a billboard, go through a magazine, there's adverts, go on the internet, there's banners coming up, unwanted communication. Why should I use unwanted communication? I don't want to, because I myself don't want to. I want companies to get on my nerves. So there's no budget for advertising, 0 here, which means that we must find other means of communications, which we call pull communications. So if you go here and want to listen to me, then I'm allowed to talk. I hope this is not mandatory, class. If so, it's not mandatory now. So. And the moment we leave the building, I shouldn't, harass you on the streets with our communication messages. Why should I be allowed to do that? Why is advertising allowed to do that? I don't get it, so we don't do it. And the second share, which is not in here, is about profits, which is typically the purpose of companies, according to the book. You have to have profits, right? You have to, at the end of the year, collect your expenses, collect your income, and the share goes to the investors or the owners. And this means that I could earn more money for myself by pushing on the suppliers and by making this a secret and taking more money from you than actually needed, which are stupid ideas, I think. Why should I be allowed to earn more money by using pressure on others or by hiding this from you and making more money than I actually have to? Of course, we have to pay for all the ingredients and for all the people who work for us, and we have to put aside 1 cent per bottle for crises, of course. And then it's enough. Why should we have more money? I don't get it. And this, of course, means that we have the same salary for everybody, which is 20 euros per hour right now. And we have rises for people who have kids. If you have kids, you need more money to feed the kids. We have rises for people with handicaps, because if you have a handicap, you need more money in your daily life. And we have rises for people who need to rent a desk. We have no own office. So if you don't work at a dealership or in a truck or somewhere where you already have a room around you, then you can get more money to rent a desk somewhere. And that's it. Why should I earn more money as the people who drive the trucks or the people who do the accounting? Or why should I earn more money just because I founded it, or for responsibility, or for, I don't know, complexity of tasks? All right, but it's pretty dangerous to drive a truck and it's pretty boring as well. So maybe he should get more than I do. So if we think of equality, then we should have the same salary with these 3 possible rises for the needs of the people. That's basically it. And imagine you work for a company where the official owner and founder argues that not only I would like to share the decision-making power, I don't want to give orders, and I also want to share the resources we earn. This is a totally different level of interacting. And these slides are in German because they are from a collective member named Elena. She compared the normal, so-called normal working environment to ours. And she says, typically you have an office where you work. This has been decided by somebody else. You have a position to work in. This has been decided by somebody else, and this already makes her unhappy. Then she has a boss, typically, who tells her what to do, until when and how, and who gives her goals and checks on them and decides what she's going to be earning. And then she has a contract, of course, so she gets money when she's sick as well, but not if she has maybe a sick dog, or if she runs into a divorce and can't concentrate, or if her partner gets a gambling addict or something else happened. It's her problem. And she says in the so-called normal business world, she gets decided upon by somebody else about the working framework, and she has to adapt her private life around that working framework, about the working hours, the working location, and so on. So she has to live somewhere near that location where the boss tells her to work, right? And with us, it's a little different, she says. She has no location where she has to work. She can work where she wants to. She has no fixed time frame when she has to work. Even the amount of hours she puts in can change. We agree on roughly 1/3 of her role, or half, but she can adapt to her current life situation. And she can also design her own job, so she can apply for jobs and give away others she doesn't like. Of course, in agreement with the others, but she can kind of design her own job. And she feels treated equally. This is her slides. Because I shared the decision-making power, and I shared the distribution of resources. And of course, she knows there's no contract she has with us, but she also knows if I want to have her fired, I have to nominate her and argue so well that nobody else gives a veto. So it's pretty hard to have somebody fired, which is good, I think. Crazy, right? Gets even crazier. She says, of course, it's difficult to work in a framework where you don't have a boss. And she had to adapt, of course. Then she has to start working at some point, so she has to motivate herself, which is difficult. She needs to be concentrated while she's working, and she's at the computer most of the time, which she doesn't like, so she asked for doing her own workshops and lectures. And she has to constantly remind herself, that's her slides, that her job doesn't end at her desk, but she has to basically care for everybody which is affected by her job. And it's difficult, of course. And most people which come to us come from the normal business world, and they bring damages with them. For example, I got this call on Friday, 3 p.m., and one member asked if he could care for his child, which has gotten sick. And I was like, why do you ask me? You know what your job is. You are caring for customer data, which is important, but it's not time critical. And if your child is sick, why should I allow you to... I don't get it. But to him, it was clear that the boss has to allow him to leave work to care for his sick child, which I don't get. And a second damage most persons have which come to us is that they want to have decision-making power. And of course, they argue for it. So if I take over a job, then I want to be responsible and I have the power to decide there. And I always have to talk to them like, no, that's exactly the thing we didn't want to have in the first place, decision-making power over other people. Why would you want to have that? Do you want to have me with the decision-making power about you? No, so why would you want to have power over other people? But this is deeply inside most heads, unfortunately. And I think it's necessary to actually see the network again, because here it's a stable image, doesn't move, but in real world it moves. Somebody is sick here, somebody has a divorce there, somebody has an empty truck here or a full truck here, some law changes, something happens, and we have to adapt. Nearly on a daily basis, we have to change the company a little to adapt to the new situation, which is hopefully similar than yesterday, but not the same. And as these are all humans, my job basically is to care for humans and their situations in life and their personal needs and wishes and so on. So I'm not a drinks producer. My job title is the main moderator. And if I manage to adjust all these needs and wishes and changes to a structure without giving orders, which produces, delivers, invoices, and pays taxes, I think that's the best job of the world, basically. But it's also, I have to admit, sometimes it's complicated. And it's difficult to find the right solution. And at the same time, it's pretty easy. Because I have, I think, very few enemies in there. Not a single lawsuit in 15 years. So it's pretty much easy, I think. But of course, you need somebody who doesn't want to have decision-making power over other people. And then you can make a living from it. This is also crazy, I think, because of course I need to have money as well. So I need the same 20 euros per hour. And I have 3 cents per bottle here for kind of moderating the whole network. And nobody ever even suggested to have me fired. In the so-called normal business world, you don't need me here. You can just leave this to the forces of the markets. But nobody even ever suggested to have me fired. Pretty cool, I think. And I think that's about equality. They like and they understand, I think, the idea why I run this company the way I do. And then I thought, well, that's a working model, so maybe we could give this to other companies. So I wrote it down in 2008 and put it on a website for free, so other companies could copy it. And of course, other drinks producers can copy it now as well. So I was helping my direct competitors to gain our advantage. And I thought like, well, maybe I can change the game here as well. So I don't really want to have competitors. So maybe I can make them friends and cooperate. And this is also from a scientific paper. The red connections are companies we cooperate with and they were interviewed. The yellow ones are partners which we cooperate and they were not interviewed. And the blue ones are the partners who don't want to cooperate. So these guys, for example. These are the bad guys, I can tell you. Really. They offer money to our customers to also get into their fridge. And then they offer additional money to have us kicked out. So these are the only guys who do this. And as long as they do that, I will be talking about it. All right. But imagine how much energy and nerve and even money I would lose if I had to compete with all of these. Just by cooperating, life gets so much easier. And we have 3 colas right now, and there's a beer, which also I have founded in 2008. And then there's 2 lemonades, which were founded by David and Roman. And they used all we have learned, and the design, and the structures, and the bottling plant, everything for free. And we call it open franchise. So we share everything we have learned, and the contacts, and the experience. And the thing about sharing is, I don't have less. When I share experience and contacts I have, I don't have less. So I can easily share. They have more, of course, and then they start to share, and then I have more. So I think sharing is the way to go. And then there's a 3rd company in Dresden. They produce also a mate lemonade. And now we are 3 companies, and we can share as well the people who work for the company. This is from our website. For example, we have customer care divided to German postal regions, and all of these work for the 3 companies. So they know it's kind of pretty much safe, not dependent on one source of income, but 3. And then also I can give my personal ideas and wishes. And for example, sometimes I had like 30 phone calls per day, and I want to have my phone number there. I want to be accessible, but 30 phone calls is too much. So I put, besides my phone number, I don't like phone calls. It's here, but I don't like phone calls. And then it went down to 2 or 3 calls per day, which is all right. I can give my needs and wishes as well. Why not? Sales are looking good. This is just from today. So last year, cola went up. Cola half liter stayed the same. Beer went up, all the others. And we had like 11% rise compared to a year before, which is actually bad because we wanted to have 10 at the maximum. Because we learned here, pretty painful, that growth, which is too quick, is dangerous for the company. Because the sales went up so fast that we couldn't pay for the next even bigger production. Because of course, we produced, we delivered, we sold, and then sometimes went by until the money is there. And it was getting bigger and bigger, and we were kind of bankrupt because the growth was too quick. And then I could have asked a bank, for example, to give us a loan to fuel the growth, but then I would have to work for the bank, right? And to the bank's standards, which I didn't want to. And then the 2 biggest wholesalers we have, they called and said something interesting. They said, well, we have a problem there, and we want to help so we can pay quicker, which typically never happens in the drinks industry. And they said, we have a problem. Not you have a problem, and I can help, but we have a problem. And I think then we win, if they feel that it's a we company. Well, and then we got problems. Imagine German tax authorities visiting us, looking at the project. And they checked for 3 years in the past. And German tax authorities are pretty powerful. They can shut down the company now if they feel it's not being run properly. And I was afraid. But you might have learned already about me that I'm kind of stubborn guy, and also I want to have 3 companies to make it stable. I want to have lots of partners, happy partners to make it stable. So I'm pretty much a coward also. And therefore, I always obeyed the rules as good as I could. But there's another problem. The accounting girl, she had no experience at accounting because we let her try. But because we treat her the way we do, she became a very good accounting person. So we went out of that check with no complaints at all. And we have a tax advisor also, and she says that has never happened in 20 years of her job experience. There's always something they find. No, not with us. And I think this is proof of concept that it's possible to run a company with so many commercial partners within the capitalistic framework, which supposedly demands that you have growth, that you have to have a management, that you have to have advertising and so on, with German laws, of course. We had no lawsuits, so the problem here, and tax authorities as well. So from the system perspective, it's pretty much compatible, nothing to worry about. And still, we have turned the whole thing around. So I think it's possible to do so. And if some entrepreneur tells you, well, we are in the framework of the system, we have the laws, we have the taxes, we have to, maybe they don't, and they just don't know. And still, this is not a theory I'm presenting. Sometimes I do it when I visit, like in London, for example. I will be in London in March, and they don't know me there, so I present this whole concept as a theory I'm planning to do. You can imagine the faces, right? No, this is producing, delivering, invoicing, paying taxes, real, 15 years. You can grab the bottles. And then I had another dream, like 10 years ago. I wanted to become a kind of a consultant. And I don't like the idea of a consultant telling everybody else what to do, but some different form of consultant. And I thought, like, if I wanted to have companies giving jobs to me, then I would need to build a list of references I have done before, including 1 or 2 big names. So I started giving advice as good as I could to other companies for free, to build up a list of references, 22 companies. And then I issued a project with a federal foundation to have us funded to go into 12, even more companies, to help them basically work together better by caring for better exchange within the people. This is German title, and it's untranslatable, terrible federal rules, but they funded us and still do. And so I had an even longer list of references, and then I went to a German National Railway Company for 1 year and helped them with their leadership model. And they even took over 3 suggestions I had to the leadership model and still didn't pay me. I have no idea. And I kept with them for more than a year because I think if they don't understand such simple concepts of if you use somebody else's work, then you of course have to give a share, then they really need help. But still, I didn't have the big name on my references list. And then last summer, I got an email from a spooky Gmail account. Well, we are from a federal institution of the United Arab Emirates, and we want to have advice on how to do management better. And I was like, well, should I be kidnapped or? But it turned out to be real. I went there in October for 8 days and went to a Federal Demographic Council, which is a state-run research institute. And they have 50 mostly female researchers, highly educated, PhD or master's level, and of course used to design their own work. And 4 managers from the old-fashioned style with attendance times and giving jobs and so on. And they lost researchers, and so they had to find a better cooperation model. And this is a pretty interesting country as well. So you see there's one woman in the government only. She's a ministry for happiness. So there's steps, but she's at the same time secretary to another minister. So, and when I went there, they had 1 day per week where the employees were allowed to actually design their own jobs and do whatever they wanted to, provided it's for the institution. And when I left, they wanted to make it full time. So I think that was a successful visit. And they paid 7,000 euros, so I have my first big name. And on Saturday this week, I will be awarded in Mumbai, India, with one of 50 most impactful social innovators worldwide. I won't fly there, I don't fly usually, but a member of our collective, which is from India, she goes there and takes the prize. And I think it's pretty sad because I have, of course, managed to establish some reach for my ideas, but if this is if I'm one of the most innovative, most impactful in the world, then we need much more social innovators, right? And if our approach is considered innovative, there's also a problem, because one manager from the Emirates put it, I can't say it, I talk to people, yeah, and find solutions, and where's the innovation? Unfortunately, it seems to be an innovation today in the corporate world to actually talk to everybody and find better solutions. And now on consulting, I have 3 clients and 2 other prospects. Laura gave the name. I tried to avoid it here, but I told her before. And it's becoming too much. I can't take new clients. So the dream is also real. I have become kind of a consultant, which is pretty cool. Because like 17 years ago, I was just sitting in my bathtub and didn't like the changes with the cola and had no money, no real plan, no knowledge of how to run businesses, and now I'm here. And I hope this is not end of the line, but I think it's pretty cool. And for me, on a personal level, I think this is great because I have enough money. 20 euros per hour is full-time. I don't even know exactly, like 3,200 or something per month. I can pay a rent, I can fill my fridge, I can have insurances I want to, I can give money to refugees, which I did. I can pay for sports. I have, last counted, I have 12 computers in my home. I like to play with the computers. So I'm a rich man, basically, with 30 euros per hour. I think I have everything I need. I'm a rich man. And at the same time, I have this income with so many partners which are obviously happy because they are still there. So it's a pretty much stable source of income. I have lots of freedom to look like I want to, say things I think, and go where I want to or don't do it, which is pretty much not standard in the so-called normal business world. I feel I care for people, so I have a meaningful job, which is good. I have established some reach to the Emirates and to India even for my ideas. And I always get to learn something new, so no working day of me is the same. And these are at least 6 factors I think you should think of, you could think of when you design your career. I think it's not only about the money. Of course, money is important, and money can be very important if you have not enough of it. If you have to decide if you pay for the insurance or the rent or something to eat, then money is very important. But if you have it all, why do you need more money? I think there's other things which are also important. And when I compare this to Max, for example, a friend of mine who has 5 times the money I have, and he works in an advertising agency, which he has to go to every day. And he has no freedom to say what he thinks there. And he does advertising for cars, so pretty much useless for society. And no reach for his ideas, and his job is always the same, and 5 times the money, and he's unhappy. So I think there's other things which are more important when there's enough money then. And you could argue, of course, that the whole premium company and the newborn consultancy only exist because I am like the way I am. I don't want to have power over people, and I do want to share resources, and I think if I do both, then I will be rewarded on several levels in the end. And I'm also pretty stubborn to follow this idea like 8.5 years until I was able to make a living from it. But the people who work for the project also play a role. If they wouldn't, I would be able to present a theory to you, but not a working company. And when I was younger, I thought like the system is so big and so powerful and the structures are so solid, and I'm just a single person, I can't change anything. But I am still a single person, right? I'm one person. And I was able to build up such a project without being very intelligent, without having so much education, just by following my idea. And therefore, I think it's possible to make a difference as a single person. And therefore, I'm coming back to the professor from the University of Berlin. He asks his students, what would Uwe think, which is nice. But I'm asking you, what do you think, basically, about this concept and also about all the others you will be learning in this course? And I'm pretty much asking you to make a difference in your career, because it's possible. That's it. Thanks.